Hey, thanks for joining us. My name is Anthony McDonald. I'm the Generations Pastor here at United Church. Right now, we're in a series called Why Am I Here, where we're spending 30 days to understand our purpose and passion in life. We hope you enjoyed today's message.
I am absolutely pumped up today and excited about all that God is doing, man. Can we just celebrate again this past 2 weeks? How amazing was last week and this week? Man, I am one of the core values at United Church, and I'll sneak these in every now and then, but you can pick those up at guest services. All of the core values is that we're having the time of our lives. And I can tell you more than anything that I am having like an absolute blast. Like, this has been an amazing, amazing ride. And I'm so excited that when I was looking back at this week and thinking about where we were going and where we've been, I was thinking about the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, we kicked off kind of our countdown to launch, the first week of our church. And as we were thinking about how we were going to prepare for that, we were like, I don't think there would be any better way than to do a full week of serving, a full week of giving back. And so we decided to call it For Dover Week. How many of you guys have seen this idea of For Dover floating around? If you're over 50, or if you're over 60, it's not # For Dover. That's a hashtag, okay? And so I see people reading my shirt all the time. They're like, "We are # For Dover," and I'm like, "Yep, that's exactly what it says." Yep. So just go with it. All right, we are for Dover. And so we decided to do this entire week called For Dover Week. And so we started out on Saturday morning. We got to go and serve with the Kent County Tourism with the Amish Country Bike Tour. Did anybody bike in that? Yeah, they've got like a 62-mile and a 100-mile. Like, I get tired driving 100 miles. I don't know about you, but like 100-mile bike ride, incredible stuff. So we got to serve there. And then on that Sunday, we went around to like laundromats all over Dover. And we gave out $5 bags of quarters with a little card that says "We are for Dover," and on the back it said just a small way to show that we are for you. And like that week just continued on. We did some incredible stuff. We served at the food pantry at Calvary Assembly of God because we believe this. We believe that we're just part of the story. Like, we're not the story. We're not the only church in Dover. Do you guys realize, like, this is not the only church? There's so many other churches doing great things, and we just want to partner with those people and lock arms and do that. And so we were able to do that. We were able to go to Dover High to the football game and to a tailgate, and then we were able to help the cleanup crew afterwards. Man, God has just been like showing off in Dover the last 2 weeks, and then last week it culminated to our very first Sunday. And I can tell you, like, the feeling in here was very similar this morning, but it was electric last week. Can you agree? Would you agree with me? Like, it was absolutely, yeah. Like, people were super pumped to be here, as you are. Many of you guys are this week. But man, God has done some incredible things. We saw 14 people come home last week. We saw 14 people that decided that they wanted to make Jesus their Savior. That's exciting. We saw 16 say, "You know what? I've been running for a while, but I'm coming home now." So 30 in total who have just been restored with the Father. Man, that is good stuff. And we saw over 500 people here and 96 United kids. Holy cow, you guys produced some kids. Come on, right? Like, let's just be honest. Like, we've got an abnormal amount of kids, and I'm pumped up about it. Look, let me tell you this. As the pastor of this church, we are working on all of our systems. We get better weekly. We get better daily. And so we take it very seriously. When we see maybe the kids' check-ins not going fast enough, we take it very seriously. We added a second computer this week, and sometimes technology does what technology does, you know what I mean? But we are trying to every single week get better so that we can serve you and make your experience so much greater. So we're just excited for what's been happening over the last 2 weeks, but we're excited about today. I'm excited about this series we're starting today. This series called Why Am I Here? Why am I here? And we were thinking about where we wanted to go, where we wanted to start. And I can promise you this, there's one promise I can make you. This will be the best teaching series that we've ever done at United Church. Like, it will be the absolute greatest teaching series that we will have ever done up until this point. It was the greatest one. So that's the one promise I can make you. But we started thinking about, where do we want to start? And I believe that this is an important question because there are so many people. If you go to Google and you type in most asked question on Google, one of the most popular questions is, why am I here? Like, what is life all about? Like, why am I sucking air? And why is my heart beating? Why am I here? we started to wrap our minds around this idea of this question that I believe that so many people ask, this question that people just want to know, what is the meaning of life? Like, if I'm going to wake up today and then I'm going to wake up tomorrow, if I'm going to wake up like every day this week and next week and come back next Sunday, I've got to know there's more to life than just waking up and going to sleep, waking up and going to sleep. Is anybody with me? Like, I've got to know that there's some kind of purpose. There's some reason that I'm here. And as we began to research this, I found out today that the average lifespan is 28,750 days. 28,700. You're like, man, that's a lot of days. And that averages out to about 78.8 years old. Or if you're in super good shape, you may live to be 90. Or I don't know, you may be on the other end of the spectrum, hopefully not. But the average lifespan is about 28,750 days. And see, this seems like a lot, but then we start to count those days down. And we wake up tomorrow, it's 28,749, and then 28,748. And by the end of the week, we're already at 28,743. And it seems like this. Maybe you can relate to me in this manner. It seemed like when I was younger that time just went slower. Anybody with me? Like, when I was younger, there was this massive debacle, right, of Y2K. Anybody remember this? Yeah, you're like, all right, so I grew up, I would have been 13 years old when Y2K came, and I just remember, I grew up in a church that was like it was kind of scary, if I was to be honest. Like, I would not want you guys to go there, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm lucky I came out all right, you know what I mean, kind of, but I'm still in counseling, just kidding, but seriously. So, I was 13 years old, Y2K came around, and I remember the pastor, like, he was like, look, this is what's going to happen. He preached like this, you know what I mean? He had the little preacher voice, and I'm like, dude, you all right, man? Like, you just need to calm down, bro. You know what I mean? Like, take a deep breath. But I grew up in North Carolina, so it was like the southern drawl on top of all that. So it was like what you would imagine from like the TV pastor. And he was going on and on about Y2K. Like, this is when Jesus is coming back. Jesus, and I'm like, what? Whoa, wait a minute. Like, I'm 13, bro. Like, let's calm it down, back it up. You know what I mean? Like, this is a little too intense for me. But I remember there was two things that I wanted to do. I was 13. It was two things that I wanted to do. I just remember life just creeping by. It could not go any slower. It was two things I wanted to do. I wanted to get my license. Oh, come on, you know what I'm talking about. And I wanted to get married. Like, actually, I wanted to go on my honeymoon, right? Like, if I were to be honest. Like, I wanted to get my license, and I wanted to go on my honeymoon. Like, those are the two things. I'm 13, Pastor. If I could just make it past this point. And I remember it was just creeping, crawling by, and we get to the December 31st, and the bells are about to toll for January 1st, Y2K. And I remember kneeling at an altar, begging God, please, please, please. My dad owns a Honda and Acura repair shop. I'll get a nice car. Just let me live. Like, please. I just want to drive. God, I haven't met Sherry yet, but I'm sure she's fine, right? Like, just let me live. Like, and I remember the clock striking 12, and nothing happened. I'm like, wait a minute. All this hype for nothing, right? Y2K, everything. You know what I mean? Like, safeguard your computers. Make sure you've got it backed up. Everything, nothing happens. Like the greatest letdown of my life. But it seems like the older I get, I'm not too much older, but I'm getting older. And it seems like the older I get, the faster the time goes by. Anybody with me there? And so it feels like when I was younger, it just crept by. Now it's like when I'm having a conversation, I'm like, hey, remember 2 weeks ago? It was actually probably 6 months ago. You know what I mean? And if it was 6 months, if I think it was 6 months ago, it's probably like 3 years. And I feel like my grandmother who's like, you've just grown an inch every hour. You know what I mean? Like, I see like my friends' kids running up to me. I just feel like I'm getting old. But I started, laugh it up. You are too. You see, as I was thinking about this, I'm 29, which means I've lived about 10,585 of my 28,750 days. That's pretty sobering. Like, seriously, when you start to think about these numbers, let me ask a couple of you in the room. If you're 12, you've already lived 4,380 days. If you're 16 or 18 in the room, you've lived 6,570. If you're 30, you've lived 10,950. If you're 40, 14,600. If you're 50, 18,250. If you're 60, 21,900. Look, you're like, dude, this is super depressing. Get to the point, right? You see, but all of us in the room, every single one of us, minus the 16-year-olds, I'm trying to put this into perspective. Go with me. Just look at your neighbor, say, we're going somewhere. Do it. Look at your other neighbor that you didn't like as much and say, we're going somewhere. Yeah. We're going somewhere. I promise we're going to get there in just a second. But all of us, over the age of 16, we have all lived 1/5 of our lives already. Like 1/5, 20% of our lives have already expired. Again, you're like, this is depressing. And if that's true, if these numbers are legit, then wouldn't it be wise if we took some concentrated time to ask ourselves the question, why am I here? Why am I here? Like, what is the meaning of life? Why am I here? And here's what we want to do. We want to take 30 days. If somebody asks me, Kenneth, are you talking about 30 Sundays? That's crazy. No. Listen, I promise we will never do a series that lasts 30 Sundays. If we do, I probably won't be the pastor. Like, it'd be somebody else. But 30 days altogether this week and the next 4, and just trying to figure out what in the world, why are we here? Does my life matter? Do I have a purpose? And I think that as we navigate through this, we'll be able to live the next 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 days of our lives with purpose, on purpose, and for a purpose. You see, sometimes I start to think about this, and I get a little overwhelmed. I get a little, like, worked up about it because I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I'm just like a worry wart. I get it from my mom, right? I'm like super worried about, anybody with me? You're just like, you worry about everything. You worry about worrying. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm worried that I'm worrying that I worried yesterday, so I need to stop worrying. And so you worry like me, and I ask myself the question all the time is like, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be? Is this exactly where I'm supposed to be? Is this exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, God? Like, is this exactly where I'm supposed to be? You see, and I would guess that some of you in a room this size, you've asked yourselves the very same question. Maybe you find yourselves today in a struggling marriage. You're like, God, is this where I'm supposed to be? Like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Maybe today you find yourself in the Air Force and you're asking yourself, is this where I'm supposed to be? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Maybe you find yourself, I don't know, maybe you work in the educational system. I don't know what you do, but maybe you ask yourself sometimes like I do, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And all of these questions are important unless, of course, we believe that there is no God. Bertrand Russell, a renowned atheist, once said this. He said, unless you assume a God, the question of life's purpose is meaningless. Let me read that again because that should resonate in our hearts. Unless you assume a God, the question of life's purpose is meaningless. And so today, we all come from different backgrounds and all come from different belief systems and things like that. But this is what I want you to understand. If there is no God, then this is all by chance. If there is no God, like we just woke up this morning, our heart beating, sucking in oxygen for no purpose. I think that there's more to this than what we may think. When I start to think about that and I start to relate it to maybe is there a God, I start to think about the size of the universe. I start to think about that we are perfectly positioned 93 million miles away from the sun. If we were 94 million miles away from the sun, we would freeze. If we were 92 million miles away from the sun, we would burn to death. I start thinking about the idea that the earth is rotating, is circling at 67,000 miles per hour. Like, I've gone fast in my car, never 67,000. I don't know about you. But like 67,000 miles per hour. There are close to 7 billion people. We're breathing in oxygen, blowing out carbon dioxide over and over again. Our heart beats again and again and again. And I believe this is just more and more proof pointing back to an intelligent designer. You see, the God that created it all, the God who spoke, who opened his mouth and spoke the earth into existence. Maybe you come from a different belief, and I would love to have a lunch or a coffee with you, and let's talk about that. But I believe that the God who spoke the earth into existence, who opened his mouth, here's a reassuring fact this morning, is that he knows me. He knows me. And I absolutely love that truth. And as we walk through these next 30 days, I want us all to find rest in that fact that he knows me. So if you have your Bible this morning, turn with me to Psalm 139. Psalm 139. If you have your phone, you can turn there. I preach from the ESV, not because we think it's better, just because that's what I preach from, that's what I study from. So the English Standard Version. So Psalm 139, I'll give you a second to get there. But Psalms are an incredible collection of just that, of songs. And they were written by this guy named David, who was said to be a man after God's own heart. Like this guy was legit. Like he was absolutely an incredible person. And so Psalm 139, we're going to start verse 1. This is one of my favorite passages. It says, "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take wings on the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. And if I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night. Even the darkness, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day. For darkness is as light with you. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake and I am still with you. You see, this passage, it absolutely wrecks me because I think of it as like a father writing to a child. And as I start to think about that, last week we talked about the father and the story of the prodigal son, and many of you were here. If you weren't, it'll be online soon. But we talked about this father coming home, and I think of Psalm 139 as kind of like a poem or a song written to a son, written to a daughter, someone that is just reassuring them of the father's love, just reassuring them of who they are. And as I was thinking about this idea of he knows me, how many of you guys would say, like, it's good to be known sometimes? Like, you enjoy being known. Few people. But I think that if we were to be honest, I think that all of us would raise our hand. Like, we all love to be known. As I was preparing for last week, our very first week, I was kind of hanging out, I was hanging out with some family, and my family had come in town from North Carolina, and so we were spending a little bit of time with them, and I opened my email up, and there was this email from this guy named Dino Rizzo. And Pastor Dino is an incredible dude. We are affiliated with what's called ARC churches, and ARC is basically Association of Related Churches, and what they've done is all they've done for the last 15 years is plant over 500 churches and see so many people come to know Jesus. Oh, praise God, it's awesome. But we're affiliated with ARC, and what they do is they do training, and they do assessments, and they say, look, are you legit? Are you a whack job? Like, should you not be planting a church, or are you real deal? Like, so they try to weed out the people that like, hey, you should go over there and like, do that and not plant a church because you're going to sink a lot of people's money. It's not going to be a good thing. And so we're part of ARC, and Dino Rizzo is the executive director. And I remember one time that me and Sherry were down in Birmingham, Alabama. That's where their headquarters is. And I was prepping my coffee, and I walked over and I grabbed the little sleeve for my coffee because my hand was about to burn off. And so I walked over there, and Dino Rizzo walks up. And Dino Rizzo is like 6'6", like big dude. And I was like, that's Dino Rizzo. That's so cool. And I'm like, hey, Pastor Dino. You know what I mean? Like stuttering over myself, like so excited about it. I'm like, how are you doing? I'm like, man, I just appreciate all you do. You wrote this book called Servolution, and starting a revolution through serving. And hey, I read your book, man. It was awesome, man. It was such a good thing. And you know, we'll probably go through it at some point. But I remember meeting Pastor Dino. And then as I opened up my email last week, and it was an email from Pastor Dino that said, Dear Kenneth and Sherry. I was like, Dino Rizzo emailed me. That's so cool. Like he's got like 500 other churches he emailed, and I'm sure, don't bust my bubble, I'm sure he cut and paste from every other email that he sent to the other pastors, but just let me bask for a moment, right? So Dino Rizzo emailed me. I remember growing up in high school, I played baseball for a team called North Carolina Baseball Academy, and there was a guy named Scott Bankhead. He played Major League Baseball for 10 plus years. He was my coach, and I remember thinking to myself, Scott Bankhead, I had his baseball card, right? He knows me. Like, how cool is that? Like, that's exciting. And last week, Mayor Christensen was here. Is Mayor Christensen here today by any chance? Shout at me if you are. No? Okay, cool. But Mayor Christensen was here. He was like, I had one, and that was enough. You know what I'm saying? I love Mayor Christensen, but he's an awesome guy. But I remember, like, we were at the Amish Country Bike Tour, and he's talking to some of the Dover cops, and he's like, look, he was like, this guy, Kenneth Wagner, he's like bringing a new energy to Dover. And I'm like, what? That's really cool. The mayor just said that about me. And I just remember all of these things, this idea of how cool it is to be known. But here's what I want to tell you this morning, is that even greater than being known by Dino Rizzo, the executive director of ARC, even greater than being known by Scott Bankhead, an old Major League Baseball pitcher, even greater than being known by Mayor Christian, is that I'm known by the creator of the universe. Come on. I'm known by the creator intricately. And see, here's the reality this morning, is that he not only knows me, he knows you. And I have a sneaky suspicion that if he knows me and he knows you, then he has a plan for every single one of us in this room. He has a purpose that's greater than you could ever imagine. This morning, maybe you've heard this before, that God loves you. Maybe you haven't, but I want you to know this morning that God loves you more than you could ever imagine. But here's another thing that I don't think maybe some of you have heard, but till I was an older teenager, I never knew this. That God not only loves me, but God is for me. Like, he not only loves me, but he is for me. Like, well, God doesn't have a choice whether to love me or not. Yeah, he may not have a choice whether to love you or not because he's God and because that's who he is. But he is not only he's not only knows me and he's not only loves me, but he is for me. He wants me to prosper. He wants you to prosper, not monetary, like, oh, this guy's just all about money. No, time out. He wants you to succeed right where you are. He wants you to be excellent in your workplace. He wants you to be excellent wherever you find yourself, that he's not only loves us, but he is for us. You see, the same God that if we were to flip back to Genesis, you would see that he created the heavens and the earth, and you would see that the same God who created everything knows me and he knows you. And I have a sneaky suspicion, like I said, that if he knows me, he's got a plan for me. Verse 1, I'm going to just track back through a couple of these because I think I just want to point out a few things. It says, oh Lord, you have searched me and known me. I love that. Skip down to verse 3. You search our path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Let me let you in on a secret, that God knows you more than you know yourself. Like, God has you figured out. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that in all the good ways. You're like, you ever just, don't raise your hand because I've been here and maybe you have too. So sometimes I lay in bed or sometimes I'm like driving down the road and I'm like, God, am I the only one who struggles with this? Like, am I the only one who's like, that is going through this? And I have this reassurance in my life that like he not only knows me, he's not only for me, but he has searched out my path and my laying down, and he is acquainted with all my ways. He knows exactly who I am, is my deepest, most inward parts, the parts that I don't want anybody else to see. He knows me, and he's still completely thrilled with me. Verse 5, he says, you hem me in behind and before me, lay your hand upon me. The Creator's hand is upon us, and when his hand is on us, he begins to place dreams in our hearts. He begins to deposit some passions and some purposes in our hearts. There's this passage in Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 5, it says this. It says, the purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. A man of understanding will draw it out. And as I was thinking about this, I remember I was sitting in a coffee shop locally one time, and as I was sitting there in this little corner booth in this little nook and cranny at may or may not have been Governor's Cafe, but I was sitting there and I was enjoying a nice cup of coffee, and there was two ladies, and if you're here, I'm sorry, but there was two ladies sitting beside me, and I heard this conversation. There's this book by a guy named Rick Warren, who's an incredible pastor. He's done more for the church than many other pastors that I've ever seen before. But he wrote this book called Purpose Driven Life. Are you familiar with it? Or he just re-released it from title, What on Earth Am I Here For? And I remember these ladies sitting there talking, and it was so condescending, and like I was trying my best, so I just put my headphones in so I didn't get in the conversation. You ever been there? You're just like, I got to walk away. You know what I mean? Who does Rick Warren think he is? That these people can go 40 days and think they can find what on earth they're here for. That's stupid. And I'm like, headphones in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm out of this conversation. And I started thinking to myself, like, if you just took it literally, all right, we complete the book. I know what I'm here for. My purpose is clear. God, I'm walking in it. Here I am. You know what I mean? If we took it that way, of course, that's a little crazy. It's a little bit out there. But I think what Rick Warren was trying to do, and I think what we're trying to do in these 30 days, is what if we just took one step closer to knowing our purpose? Would it be worth it? If we took 2 steps closer, like it wasn't just one, maybe it was 2. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I don't ever want to be like that condescending and negative to think that God could do something great in my life, even in 30 days. I think he could, and I think he can in your life as well. Verse 13, we continue on. It says, for you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. Come on, that's good. Verse 14 says, I praise you for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. And I've read this passage so many times. I've read this passage like a ton in my life, and I've been so excited about this passage. But at this point in my life, it takes on a whole new meaning. I didn't say this last week, but I'll say it this week. Me and my wife are 20 weeks pregnant. How exciting is that? Yeah. And I got a picture to share with you. Can I share a picture with you? This is our little boy. Yeah. That's his hand up by his face, if you can't tell. It's a little balled up fist. But this takes on an entirely different meaning to me. Like as I read this and I was sitting there, I remember like we were having the ultrasound not this past Friday, but the Friday before that. And we were sitting there waiting, and the lady puts the little thing, the probe on her belly, and she's like, 2 seconds, it's a boy. I'm like, whoa, you're going to have to show me proof. You know what I mean? Like we're not playing just it's a boy that fast. And so she goes and shows us the proof. That was cool. But like we go on, and I just remember a couple minutes into it, like tears just started streaming down my face. Like, I just remember it was like, unlike anything I've ever experienced. You're like, if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, you think it's cheesy, but just wait. You're going to be crying too. It's tough, man. And if you didn't cry, anyways, moving on. So I just remember like sitting there, and he was like adamant on not like letting her get the measurements and stuff he needed. He's like squirming all around, moving all around. And I just remember seeing like a hand flash across the thing, and a fist, and then a foot, and a knee, and a leg. And I was like overwhelmed by this idea that the creator of the universe, that he placed my son in my wife's stomach. And now I'm watching this grow day by day by day. How amazing is life? I just love the meaning and the power of life. And here's what I want you to know, that this is why I tell you all of that, is because regardless of what anyone has said about you in the past, I want you to know this, is that you are not an accident. Like you are not an accident. Like your parents may not have planned for you, but God did. Like there are such things as illegitimate parents, but there's no such things as illegitimate children. You understand that, right? There's no such thing as an illegitimate child. Like God has his hand on you. He has hemmed you in before and behind. He is with you, and he's not only with you, he's for you. And I just think about this idea that this God of the universe, that he is, in verse 15 it says he wove me together. I love the imagery. Verse 16, it says this. It says, your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none. You see, God knew all of the 28,750 that you would live. God knew every single one. You see, this morning, here's what I believe too. I believe that self-harm, I believe that depression, I believe that self-injury, I believe that anxiety, I believe that suicide are so high because that people don't know that God Almighty loves you. He loves you. He is for you. There are real things called depression and anxiety. I get that. We're not the church that's just going to say, oh, good luck with that, fix that, pray a little bit more. No, there are real things called those. But I think that when you start to understand that the God of the universe, the creator, he has his hand on you, you begin to get clarity. And passion and purpose begins to reveal itself. See, but today, here's what I want you to know, is I believe that your purpose and your passion can only be found. Like, you may have moments of joy, moments of excitement, moments of happiness, but I believe that true excitement, true joy, true purpose, and true passion can only come inside of a relationship with Jesus Christ. I believe that you'll stumble around. I think of it like this, that when the lights are off and you're stumbling around trying to find your way in your room, that you may stumble upon a few things that you like or you're happy about or bring you momentary joy. But I believe that moment when you say, God, I want to be yours. I want to follow you. I believe at that moment there's a switch that flips in our life that God illuminates. And we're able to further see our purpose and our passion and what God has placed in front of us. That's what I want us to do. I just want you to bow your head and close your eyes where you are. Today, maybe you've never heard or read Psalm 139. You're completely blown away by what you heard today. And you're thinking to yourself, if there's a God like that, if there's a creator of this universe like that, who not only cares enough to create me, but he cares enough to give me a purpose and a passion, then I want to know him. I want to know a God like that. If that's you with every head bowed, every eye closed, I would just want you to slip your hand up and say, that's me, Pastor Kenneth. Like, I want to know a God like that. Nobody's looking around. Is there anybody else that would just say, that's me? Pastor Kenneth, that's me. I want to know a God like that. Wow. So good. You can put them down. So as we sing this song, as this song is sung, we're not dismissed yet. But as this song is sung, I want these lyrics to just minister to your heart. I'm going to come out because there's a second challenge that I want to give. But those people that you just raise your hand and say, I want to know a God like that. During this song, simply in your own words, just cry out to him and say, God, I want to live for you. God, I want to follow you. Forgive me of my failures and my shortcomings. Forgive me my sins. And help me to follow you all the days of my life. I believe in that moment that everything changes. The illumination occurs, and I believe that you're able to further find your purpose and your passion. So as this song is sung, just let it minister to your heart.